Hello everyone. In this lesson, let's add a search feature to our ideas. We'll start with a backend, specifically with the getIdeas endpoint input. Let's add a field where a search string can be provided. It will be search, which is a string but optional, so it can be omitted. All right, we've added search. Now let's add the corresponding filtering to our endpoint. So how should it work? We need it to return all ideas if no string is passed. If the search string is provided, it should search within the title, description, and text fields for the specified text in search. Okay, and add the corresponding where clause here. So, if there's a search in the input, then if there's no search in the input, where is undefined? But if search was provided, then we add the following structure. Or is an operator in Prisma, where we pass an array and need at least one of these conditions to be met. So, either in name, search is a special method for string search, and we pass the actual content we are searching from our input. The same applies for description or text. That is, if the text exists anywhere in the name, description, or text, these ideas will be included in our result set. And if those texts aren't there, then the ideas won't be included. That's essentially the point of the search. Okay, but we're facing complaints saying that search doesn't exist. Search. It's not a default Prisma feature. It requires additional setup. And here we'll have to work with this object and add the full text search feature here. This information is simply from the documentation. We need to regenerate our client. Oh, PNPM-BEPGC. I remind you, this script specifically generates the client. The client is generated, and when creating a migration, generated separately. PNPM-BEPGC. All right, let's check and update the TypeScript server. And our search started working. Great. We've completed the backend work. Now let's focus on the front end. So, how will this work for us? Let's go to the All Ideas page and add the following logic. Well, first, I'll show in the browser roughly how I want it to be. We need to restart the backend because it wasn't prepared for what happened. Got it? The backend has been restarted, and let's go to the All Ideas page. I want an input field here, where when we enter text, it automatically sends to our endpoint, providing the desired results. The only thing I want is that it works smoothly without having to submit our form every time. So this input is essentially a form. I want it to send to the backend as we type. Let's implement this. So, the All Ideas page. There wasn't any form here yet, but we will add it. So, we do it as follows. We use our hook useForm. And now, for the validation schema, we take our input, backend input. But we don't need the entire input, including cursor and limit. We need only search. In Zod, there's a pick operator for this, and we specify that we need only search. But we're still getting errors because it's saying we don't have an onSubmit method here. And we don't need onSubmit here. We will directly insert the form data right here. So, you can pass our parameters here. We will specify search here. Well, let's make it formic value search. That means onSubmit method is not needed. Our form will only handle validation and state management within formic. For that, we need to tweak our useForm hook a bit. We make onSubmit optional for this, and accordingly, here we will put a check-in onSubmit. If we don't have this on submit, we'll just exit this whole mess. All right, so we adjusted the hook. Types no longer complain. And we can see that our search value is inserted here. Okay, and now let's add the input itself. So we'll add it at the top and it will be next in line. We wrapped it in a div.ess filter and we want it to be full width. But right now, we have a problem that our input for max width only wants to accept a number, because previously we passed a pixel value there. Now we want to pass a string with 100%. Let's fix this. Number or string. All right, so now this works. At the same time, let's handle the case when someone searched for something and found nothing. Let's add the following. So if there was no error, but as we remember, we have an array in data, in pages. We simply take the first page, look at the ideas array there, and if there are no ideas on the first page, we will display a message, not in red because it's not an error. We need an informational alert. I like information alerts to be either blue or white or brown. Let's add this color to the alert. So red, green, or brown. So we've added brown. We also need to add a CSS style for it to actually be brown. Here, allowed it to be brown. Good. Alert added. So in all ideas, page, let's also add a margin to the filter so that it doesn't stick to our ideas. Just set the filter margin bottom to 20 pixels. Good. Filter added. Let's go check how it works. Here's our search bar. Well, let's enter 1. It finds the first one. It searches the entire string. That's how search works in Prisma. If we enter 15, we get 15. By the way, we have some ideas labeled as idea. Let's enter idea. Yes, here it is. It finds 2 ideas. Good. What's our little problem now? Look, as we input, okay, this is some unexpected error. When it was an idea, it was fine. Problems start with the space, so we need to figure this out. I think very quickly. We can't figure this out, so I'll pause it temporarily. I'll figure it out and tell you how I managed. Okay, good. We've solved the error. Look at the situation. There was an issue with the spaces. Since this query is passed to the database, the search format must be appropriate. And spaces there need to be replaced either with ampersands or underscores. So the code changed a bit, and I bring our input. Search to a certain format and call it normalized search. But there are 2 options. Here's the first one. We trim all spaces and tabs from the edges of this string and replace all spaces, tabs, and line breaks with underscores. So in this situation, our normalized search is just our string where spaces are replaced by underscores, and then it will search for our strings in exactly the same sequence. Here's an example. So we type ID, and it finds these 2 records. We type ID2, and it finds this record. If we write to ID, it won't find anything because the sequence was different. There is a second option. We can do the same thing, but replace spaces not with underscores, but with ampersands, with or without spaces. Replace with ampersands, see what we get. Type ID2, it finds it. Type 2ID, it also finds it. How you should do it, I don't know. It depends on how you have designed your search, but I'll keep the ampersands, for example. All right, well, and I will leave this line here for the future, just in case I want to use this method. All right, so, in the search, we are accordingly already passing normalize search. But what else is wrong here, which I have already started talking about? But an error interrupted us. Here, every little action, every input, sends a request to the backend because we are not finished yet. It constantly shows us something, constantly shows loading, and I don't like it. What do they usually do in such situations? They make it so that while the user is typing something into this input, requests to the server are not sent. And as soon as they finish their input, a request is sent to the server. For this, I suggest using the useDebounce hook. This is not a standard hook. It's in a special library, which we will install now. It's called usehooks.ts. Install it in the web app. Okay, let's import it. Okay, let's wait for the installation. All right. Let's apply it now. It's quite simple to apply. We now search. We save it in a separate variable, but pass it through the useDebounce hook. It works as follows. It actually takes two parameters. First, the value itself, then the delay during which it should wait for changes. For example, if I set it to 1000 milliseconds and use value search instead of formic, which we passed here, this is how it will look. As long as the variable in the form value search changes, search does not change. But as soon as the variable in the form value search does not change for 1000 milliseconds, search is assigned the last value in form value search. Let's see how this works in the browser. So I'm typing something. Look, and nothing changes. I keep changing the code. And here I type ID search 12, ID 2. I stop typing, a second passes, and it sends a request to the server. 1000 might be too much. You can set it to, say, 300. Let's check how this works. ID 2, it might be too little. Let's set it to 500. So, you can play around with it. All right. And when the search is not found, we have a nice brown alert here. Okay, congratulations. We've implemented the search feature by idea, and we can move forward. Thank you all. See you soon.